Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar on the new e-portfolio for trainee pharmacists undertaking their foundation training year. This evening's session is aimed at designated supervisors and we will be looking at the learning needs analysis and personal development plan. Before we begin, a few housekeeping bits and the use of Zoom functions. All participants are muted to reduce background noise. If you would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A function, which you will find along at the bottom of the toolbar during the session. We will aim to answer as many questions as we can, and we may group some of these questions together too. Please note that we will be focusing on answering questions regarding the LNA and PDP, but will endeavour to answer additional questions if we have time. For any unanswered questions, we will take these away and work on these and generate additional frequently asked questions, which will be available on the HE Pharmacy webpage. The session will be recorded, and our aim is to share this with you by the end of next week at the earliest. My name is Pam Bowyer and I'm a pharmacy programme facilitator with Health Education England. I work within the London and South East pharmacy team and I'm one of the project managers for the new e-portfolio. I'll now hand over to Helen.
Welcome and good evening everyone. I'm Helen. I'm Head of Professional Development at the Royal Pharmaceutical Society and I've been working with HE colleagues to develop the e-portfolio. Just going to hand over to Fateha.
Fateha, you're on mute.
Okay, so sorry about that. I'm Fateha Al-Imran. I'm the Workforce Transformation and Integration Lead at HEE, and I'm part of the project team. Okay, so the aim of this session is to understand what the learning needs analysis and personal development plan is, and how you will be using the LNA and PDP within the portfolio. HE have commissioned the Royal Pharmaceutical Society with Axia Digital to deliver the new portfolio system for all trainee pharmacists in England for the 2021-22 foundation year. The new portfolio will directly support the use of the HE assessment strategy. It allows trainee pharmacists to build evidence of their learning by recording evidence against the GPHC learning outcomes. For more information regarding the GPHC IET and the HE Trainee Pharmacist Foundation Year Assessment Strategy, as well as the additional resources, we encourage you to visit our dedicated HE webpage, which we will provide the link at the end of the session. The objective of the portfolio is to support a consistent approach to the assessment of trainees. All trainee pharmacists in NHS organisations are required to record and upload evidence within the new portfolio. And as designated supervisors, you'll be expected to review the evidence recorded by your trainee to demonstrate their progress against the GPHC interim learning outcomes, which is supported by the HE assessment strategy. Whilst not mandated for community pharmacy trainees, we strongly recommend utilising the e-portfolio to record and upload evidence. As mentioned, the e-portfolio supports a consistent approach to the assessment of trainees, giving you that increased confidence in signing off your trainees against the interim learning outcomes at the appropriate level. The e-portfolio is available to all trainee sites in England, and the go-live date was this summer on the 12th of August. We had a phased rollout over the summer and autumn, and we will be building enhanced functionalities during the course of the year. These are some of the features of the current e-portfolio. So on the left-hand side, you can see some of the things that your trainees can actually do. So for example, they'll be able to complete an LNA and PDP. They'll be able to upload and create evidences that they can map to the interim learning outcomes as well as the HE assessment framework. They'll be able to record any meetings that they have with you as well as their progress review meeting. So as a designated supervisor, you can assess and review your trainees' progress by using the dashboard that's been developed. And this is the same dashboard that the trainee pharmacist will be able to see as well. You'll be able to sign off the interim learning outcomes by using the outcome matrix. And you'll also be able to utilise the communications chat function, which has been developed. So for example, if your trainee pharmacist has actually written up a record, they can send you a message to say that they have done this and for you to review it. In the coming months and weeks, we'll be developing the enhanced functionalities, which will be released during the course of the year. So if you haven't registered yet, the first thing to note is that registering with the HE data collection survey that we've actually produced unlocks that access to the e-portfolio. So if you haven't done that, it's a must. Once we've got that information, the data is cross-matched to the GPHC data. If there are any errors at this point, that can actually delay the process. So we encourage you to complete this carefully. Once the login details have been sent, you can access your ePortfolio, but just to note that it will take 2 to 4 weeks to process and set up. Once you have completed the survey, you will receive an email from our trainee pharmacist at he.nhs.uk website telling you that your login details will be coming shortly. And as mentioned, it can take 2 to 4 weeks to process. Once you receive your login details, we encourage you to look through the user guides that have been developed along with the training videos that are available on the HE website. If you have completed the survey, but you haven't been able to link up onto the portfolio system, it might be one of 2 reasons. Either your trainee hasn't completed the survey, or it's in the process of being organised, or it could be that you're both registered and the trainee has to actually activate it by completing an activity on the system. So over to Pam.
Thank you, Fataya. So who currently has access to the ePortfolio? So the trainees who started their foundation training year in July should have access by now. And all approved designated supervisors. So these are designated supervisors named on the learning contract, which was submitted to the GPHC as part of the application process. Workplace supervisors can be invited to complete or review an evidence, and this is done so by the ticketing collaborator process. They won't be able to see the trainee's whole portfolio, just that one piece of evidence that they've asked the collaborator to comment upon. Educational programme leads and educational programme directors will be receiving read-only access to the ePortfolios for trainees for their cohort and for reporting. EPDs who have an official role as the designated supervisor for a trainee would already have access to the ePortfolio, but their access is for DS access at the moment. And they won't be able to see all the trainees, just for that one trainee that they are conducting that DS role for. So what happens if there's a change in the designated supervisor? So we've generated a new process. The trainee pharmacist will need to complete the GPHC change of foundation training details form, which can be found on the GPHC website. They then need to submit this form to the GPHC at prereg@pharmacyregulation.org. They also need to send a copy to trainee pharmacist at he.nhs.uk. And in the subject title, they need to state that this is a change in designated supervisor. The new designated supervisor has also got to complete the HE designated supervisor survey, and we'll put a link to this in the chat towards the end of the session. And this is submitted to HEE. Data will then be matched to the information received from the GPHC, and as previously mentioned, this can take up to 2 to 4 weeks time to process. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes just kind of going through what an LNA and PDP is. So a learning needs analysis enables the trainee and their supervisors to identify and prioritise the trainee's most important and urgent learning needs. After undertaking an LNA, the trainee and their DS must develop objectives and actions that are individual to the trainee, establish priorities that are relevant to practice, and allow evaluation of progress. The LNA will need to be completed first. Any learning identified will develop into a personal development plan, and trainees will be expected to develop actions to achieve the learning, and these actions must be SMART objectives. This development of actions can be completed with their DS. So what is a personal development plan? These are planned sets of activities for the next significant period of learning, and this period of learning can vary between trainees and designated supervisors. A new PDP will be created for each LNA that is completed. Once you are satisfied that your trainee has completed all the necessary actions, you can sign their PDP as complete. So when should a trainee complete the LNA and what preparation is needed? We recommend that the LNA is completed at least a minimum of twice during the year, but a trainee may wish to complete this as many times as they wish, for example, every 13 weeks. The minimum of 2 times is once at the start of the training year, and this needs to be repeated at week 26. If the trainee wishes to complete more, then this is a discussion they need to have with you, the DS, and decide at what points they should be completing additional LNAs. Look at the overall programme for the year with the trainee and decide what period the LNA will cover. For example, if you are completing it twice a year, then the first LNA should cover weeks 0 to 26, and the second LNA should cover weeks 27 to 52. Think about the GPHC interim learning outcomes that they're planning to focus on and likely to achieve during that period. What skills, knowledge and behaviours have they developed so far? The LNA and PDP allows the trainee and their DSs to focus on the learning into smaller chunks and in accordance with the training plan in mind. If a trainee has already completed an LNA and PDP at the start of the training year and prior to the launch of the ePortfolio, then we recommend that the trainee keeps this. Additional LNAs that will follow in the training year should be completed within the ePortfolio. I'm now going to pass you over to Helen, who's going to go through a live demo of the reviewing your trainees LNA and PDP.
Great, thanks, Pam. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen and just show you how the LNA works and also the PDP, and just give you some tips when you're reviewing both the LNA and your trainees PDP. Okay, just give me a moment to share. And as Pam has already mentioned, some of your trainees may have already actually completed an LNA and a PDP, a paper version. And if that's the case, that's absolutely fine. There is no expectation for them to actually upload this to the portfolio. They can just simply keep it for their records. But for their next LNA and PDP, we do recommend that they do use the online version of those templates. Right, okay, so hopefully the majority of you have got access to the ePortfolio. Once you log in, you will land on the ePortfolio page. You see a navigation bar on the left here, and to view your trainees, you simply need to click on My Trainees, and obviously in brackets there, it's just to indicate that that's for DSs. So you should have already been matched with your trainees. So when you actually click on that button, you should see a list of all the trainees that you have been linked to. So this is a test account. This is my test account. So just to let you know that there is some test data in here, but I've put in some examples that do represent practice, hopefully. So the trainee that I'm going to have a look at today is Tom. So I just want to explain the dashboard a little bit, just so you have an idea of how this works. So all your trainings will be listed. There's a separate row for each trainee, and you'll see these counts. And these counts are just progress of activities they have aligned some of their records and pieces of evidence to. And you'll see a progress bar here when they start to produce more and more evidence. This is all blank because, like I mentioned, this is a test portfolio and it's empty apart from the LNA. And then as you move through the training year, there'll be more data or more information that you will need to have a look at. And obviously, when it comes to progress review time, you will need to sign your trainee off. And more about progress reviews next week in our webinar for DSs. Okay, so to view your trainee's portfolio, simply click on their name. Give it a minute for it to load. So just a hint here, because obviously some of you may have more than one trainee. Just be careful if you do have more than one trainee by any chance, just to check that you're logged into the right portfolio. And you can see that here at the top, it indicates who you're logged in as. So I'm actually D here, and then the name of the trainee should appear just under that. And you will land on the trainee's own dashboard. And again, there's information here about any records that have been linked to some of the HE assessment activities, but then also as they populate their portfolio, you'll see counts here against all of these records to say how many they actually, that are in progress, but also have been completed and signed off. But as mentioned, this is a blank test portfolio that I'm using tonight. So to access the LNA, all the tools are in the navigation bar on the left. Just click on LNA. And just so the portfolio does work in multiple devices as well, so you should be able to access the same information on tablets, phones. The layout will be slightly different, but all the information is there. And this trainee actually has completed an LNA already, so I'll show you that in a moment. And they started one, but actually hasn't quite completed their second one. So I'm just going to show you the LNA that actually has been completed and signed off. Just to say, if an LNA has been completed and signed off, you would not be able to go back and edit anything. But as you can see, there was only a view option available to me. So you can see nothing actually can be edited there. So this trainee has gone through giving themselves a rating and highlighted their priorities for each learning outcome. Alongside that, they've also set themselves a action. And when they do this, what happens is a little icon will pop up prompting them to consider setting an action for this particular learning outcome, depending on their rating. And I'll show you the explanation of the ratings in a moment. But you can also click on the action icon and have a look at the action itself. All of this is pulled across into PDP. So you don't actually have to go through all of these icons and open them all up individually. I'll show you the quick way of accessing that in a moment. I mentioned the explanations of the ratings, and if you click on the toggle here at the top, just as the title of Learning Needs Analysis, you'll see the explanation there. So if your trainees are stuck, don't quite understand how to rate themselves, you can point them to this. And then if you scroll down, you'll see all the learning outcomes. There are some additional domains here that they'll need to toggle to open up and complete. The trainee has a field for their own comments, and then you will find that there's a field for you to add your comments as well once you've had a chance to review. So I guess when you're looking at this, some hints really is just to go through and have a look at what they've rated themselves as high priority, because I guess that should be a key focus for them. And you know, you can obviously provide a view on whether you feel that that rating is appropriate for the current stage of practice. And then, you know, you can pop in some comments to reflect your view of their ratings as well. So it is a matter of just working through the whole NNA and making a judgment on whether you think that their ratings are accurate, and putting in some comments at the bottom. So this one's completed. As you can see, I've already put in a couple of points in here just as an example of what you can add in. So that's what you would do when you review. And actually, when you pop in some comments, you will be able to sign off that LNA. I'm just going to go back to the one that is in progress. So with this one, because it's in progress and not signed off, you have the option to view, but also edit. So you see that these are the icons. Sorry, if I go right down to the bottom of the comment section, these are the icons which prompt your trainee to set an action. So you can see it's slightly different to the kind of square icon, which it indicates it's been completed. So yeah, you can see here the field is open for you to add your own comments. And as soon as you've added some comments here, very good. You can actually mark it as complete. But I'm going to leave that open. But you know, in terms of your review, once you're happy, add your comments and mark as complete. I'm just going to save changes on this occasion. And actually, you can continue to come back to this. If you can't keep complete all in one go, you can come back to this as regularly as you need to before you sign off. Okay, so just moving on to the PDP now. So in order for the PDP to populate, the LNA has to be completed first. So your trainee should complete the LNA, and then all their actions will be pulled across into the PDP. They cannot complete the PDP in isolation without completing an LNA. So we've got 2 here. That's the one that's aligned to the one that has actually, where the LNA has been completed. And this is the second one, which is in progress. And the trainee can have more than one PDP in progress at a time. They cannot, however, have more than one LNA active and open at the same time. One has to be completed before the next one can be open. So this PDP, although the LNA has been completed and signed off, the PDP itself hasn't been signed off. So I'm actually going to go into this and show you how to do that as a designated supervisor. So you'll see that this trainee has set themselves 21 actions from their LNA, and the recommendation is to set themselves between 20 to 30 actions. And they really do need to think about priorities, that it's not an expectation for them to set an action for every single learning outcome. That would actually be quite overwhelming. So yeah, no more than 30. And gives you a quick idea here of how many they've actually completed. So 18 out of 21. So you scroll down, lots of nice smart actions here from this training. So not only do they need to set an action for the learning outcome, they also need to explain how they would evaluate how they've achieved that action. That's the evaluation field. And then what they're asked to do when they set that action is give themselves a brag status of where they are in terms of their progress. So many, when they first complete the LNA and set their actions, you'll probably find a lot of this is red because obviously they wouldn't have a chance to complete any of those actions. But over time, as they keep coming back to this and completing actions, the brag status will change. And you can filter or change the view of how you view these actions just by clicking on the actual columns themselves. The most useful, I guess, is by deadline. That helps them prioritize, but also the brag status, so you can quickly filter by anything that's still outstanding and it's generally on track but not complete. You can also search for one quickly. So I know there's one here about calculations. Yep. So as soon as you type in some key terms here, the list will filter to that particular action. And obviously you can change the view by changing how many entries or records, I guess, you want to be displayed on a page at a time. But then also obviously use the numbered pages options here in the next button to view different pages as well. You actually have the option to also edit these actions for your trainees as well if you feel that they've actually completed them. I guess the best thing to do would be, as I mentioned, filter this by brag status, and then this gives you an idea of whether your trainee is on track with completing some of the actions they've set themselves. So you can quickly see which ones are outstanding actually they need to focus on, and then things that have been done. And in your conversations with them, you can obviously pick up on some of these actions in further detail as well as needed. And then at the bottom, there are additional fields to be completed as well. So there is a training comments field, and then a designator supervisor comments field. So I'm just going to pop in a comment. I've actually got some text prepared, which I've just pasted in. And I am actually going to mark this PDP as complete because I'm quite happy that this has been completed by the learner. Okay, so you can see now that that is complete. I can no longer edit. I can only view, and your trainee will only be able to view. They will no longer be able to edit this as well. You see, oh, that's not saved. I think it's because I forgot to press save. So apologies. Remember to click save before you mark it as complete. So yeah, that's been completed now. And the other PDP that's in progress, still open for you to view, but you can see there clearly that it's been completed. Great, so that's the end of the demo, and please feel free to pop in any questions in the Q&A panel if you've got any questions about the technical aspects or whether you want to see anything else. Okay, so I'm going to pass back to Pat.
Thank you, Helen. So we'll move on to some of the questions. So thank you for those that submitted some questions before the webinar. What I've done is we're going to concentrate on answering the questions regarding the LNA and PDP, and then if we get time towards the end, we'll answer any other additional questions regarding the ePortfolio. So the first one I've got, Helen, this one's for you. So I've got traffic light changes to blue as soon as the tool is completed. Should this be happening? And is there a way of signing off each individual learning outcome when the designated supervisor feels a trainee is consistently meeting it? Oh, Helen, you're on mute.
Apologies. So I think the question about the traffic light system relates to the PDP that I've just shown you. So it shouldn't actually change to blue unless the trainee has indicated that it's been completed. It defaults to actually green. So if it's somehow automatically changing to blue for you, let us know, because I wonder whether that's just a system error with that particular account. So do get in touch with us directly and we can investigate that further. The second part of that question was about signing off learning outcomes. So you don't need to sign off learning outcomes within the PDP. You are just reviewing. There is another process for signing off learning outcomes, which we will demonstrate next week in our webinar. So join us for that and we can show you that process.
Thank you, Helen. Is saying the LNA and PDP seems a lot of work to complete in order to make them useful, and also hard to set the objectives for 6 months ahead. How general can the objectives be to make this less onerous? Patea, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some really useful hints and tips that we've developed within the sort of HE website. So have a look at the training video that's been put together, and that might answer some of your questions and queries.
Okay. I've got another one here about split placements. So for trainees in 2 different sectors simultaneously, e.g. part week in each, should they still only do 1 LNA per 6 months, or should they be doing more or less?
So they're spending, part of the week in one sector and
part in the other, yeah. And it's every months. Should they be doing 1 every 6 months, or just for those placements at a time? Should they do 2 or just the 1?
I think 1 LNA would cover both sort of aspects, and then that would be repeated again at week 26.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just scrolling down now the Q&A questions. Can you delete LNA or evidences? My trainee has accidentally created multiple LNAs. Is that possible?
Shall I help with that one?
Yeah, is that okay, Helen?
Yeah, so unfortunately there's no ability to delete any records at the moment, but we are looking at a hide or archive functionality, which we hope to roll out in the future, a future release. So yeah, not at the moment, but something is on its way in the future.
Another one for you, about how much time should trainees set aside to complete their first LNA? And how much time should DSM trainees set aside to get to complete this in full?
That's a difficult one. So it will depend on the individual trainee. I'd probably say the first one will probably take the longest compared to if you're doing it again. I'd probably set aside about an hour and a half or so that you can, dedicate your time, but there's no reason why you couldn't come back to it at a later stage if you couldn't complete it all in one go, but probably about an hour and a half or so.
Thank you. Question here about, please confirm where the LNA template is found. So there's the paper template you can find on the HE Pharmacy webpage, and I'll put the link in the chat shortly, but also the LNA template is actually on the ePortfolio as well. So just scrolling down, sorry. So we've got a question here. Will the trainee pharmacists be selecting what will be the priority on the LNA, or is this something that DS decides for them? Tia, do you want to take that one?
So I think this would be a discussion with, both your, the trainee. So in the first instance, the trainee might complete it themselves, and then this would be a discussion that you would have, and then you'd come to a mutual agreement.
Thank you. Helen, I've got a bit of a techie question here. Does every DS have the option on the right-hand side? Because when this individual's clicking their trainee, they've got no options for LNA and PDP, etc.
Oh, okay, that's a bit odd. Yes, you should, or designated supervisors should be able to access their trainee portfolio if they've been linked, be able to view LNA and PDP. So if, again, you're having a problem, let us know directly and we can have a look at your account for you.
Thank you. And Helen, I'm coming back to you. It's about how the PDP is put in order on the e-portfolio. It's not got any numbers on it, and when you edit, it takes you back to the top line each time. Is there a system on how they've actually put? Is it date order that they're generated, or the amount of comments? How does it work on the portfolio?
Yeah, it's a date order that they've been generated. So I'm just thinking, how can we help? So it sounds like the issue of things jumping back to the top, we can look into as an improvement for future releases, but use the columns to filter things. So as I mentioned, the best way of doing that is by the brag status.
Thank you. Okay. Is the information for the LNA filled out and thought of by the trainee alone, or with support with a DS? So again, as mentioned before, it can be something that the trainee may want to do themselves, but actually have those conversations with the DS. Does the LNA cover the trainee actions for multiple rotations, Tia?
It can do. So, and again, it's a decision that's for the DS as well as the trainee. So it can cover multiple rotations. It can be just one rotation. It's entirely up to the individuals and how they want to approach the LNA. We've recommended a minimum of 2, so at the start and at week 26, but there's no reason why that can't be repeated on multiple occasions.
Thank you. Got one question here, which actually I'm quite happy to answer this one because I mentioned this earlier. If the student has done their first LNA and PDP on paper, can we get the student to re-enter this on the e-portfolio to enable the student to use brag status function, etc., or can they keep it all on paper? Am I right in thinking they can put the date on that they've completed, but it will come up with an alert to say, "Are you sure you want to backdate this?" That is a discussion you can have with the trainee. If you want to upload that onto the e-portfolio, absolutely fine. If not, we're suggesting keep that hold on paper and the next LNA complete that on the e-portfolio. Scrolling down a few more. Do trainee pharmacists need to have completed both the LNA and PDP before they can sit the final exam? Tia, do you want to take that one?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, Dan?
Yep. Do the trainee pharmacists, need to have completed both the LNAs and PDPs before they can sit the final exam?
No, so this is not a mandatory aspect of the GPHC requirements. This is something that has been set as part of the e-portfolio requirements, but not to sit the registration assessment.
I'm just scrolling down, there's a couple of duplicated questions. Just to clarify, you do one LNA at the beginning and another one at week 26. Yeah, so that's the minimum. So once at the beginning of their training year and at week 26, that's the minimum that we are suggesting, but the trainee can complete additional LNAs if needed. Okay, so I think they are all the LNA questions that I've got. Are we happy to move on to other questions? I'm just going to wait and see if anything else comes up about the LNA. Oh, one's come up. So can you mark the PDP as complete even though they have not ticked done all the objectives?
Shall I start off and then Tia can kind of provide a HE perspective? So technically, yes, you can, but I think possibly that's going to be a judgment call on your behalf as well, whether you think you feel that they have achieved enough of the PDP.
Thank you.
I don't know if you have anything to add to that bit.
No, I think I completely agree with what you're saying, Helen.
Okay, thank you. And another one for you, Helen. If you've marked the PDP as complete, what happens to the actions that they've not yet done, and are they pulled through anywhere?
So they actually still remain in the PDP and are visible. So the trainee can still come back and view those actions, even though it's actually been, the PDP has been signed off.
Thank you. Okay, I've got another one. It's quite a lengthy one, so I'm going to try and split it up. And I think Helen Teo might need both your input here. It's got, my trainee has tried to select only 13 LNAs for their PDP, but clicked yes or no to the PDP option on the LNA screen. All the LNAs, about 47, to go across to the PDP rather than just 13 LNAs that they've clicked yes to. And all the no LNAs have moved across to the PDP. It now won't let them click yes or no options for the LNA section. Is there any way to alter this? Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so it sounds like the trainee has pulled everything across unintentionally, and now they're having trouble to remove some of those actions that they created within the LNA from the PDP itself. So the system should allow you to change that, and they have to do that within the LNA itself. If it's not letting the trainee do that, then again, we can have a look at their accounts for them and just investigate if perhaps it's working properly for them. So it should work, but if it's not, let us know.
To that attendee, if you could just email either us at trainingpharmacists@he.nhs.uk or ePortfolio@rfarms.org, is it?
.com, sorry.
.com, sorry. And then we can look into that for you.
We'll be putting all the contact details at the end, so not to worry.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the pre-asked questions on a few things that are non-PDP and LNA related. So how to get more than one supervisor access for split placement trainees that work, for example, on a Monday, Tuesday in a CCG and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in hospital on a weekly basis. Ted, did you want to take this one?
So there are effectively two designated supervisors in this situation. Both designated supervisors need to be registered as, being designated supervisors with the GPHC. So if they haven't, then they would need to follow that process that Pam mentioned earlier. But if both are designated supervisors, they should have access, and they can be linked in. What I would also say is to complete the HEE survey, which will enable access to be unlocked as well.
Thank you. I guess this is a good time to kind of just mention, if the supervisor is not a designated supervisor, say they are a practice supervisor or they've witnessed the trainee complete a task, then trainees can submit evidence to them using the ticketing process. Process is used, the evidence is still required to be signed off by the designated supervisor. So that final sign off will only be done by that named designated supervisor. Thank you. What happens if a trainee isn't using the ePortfolio? How would they undertake the GPHC progress reports?
So the way in which the progress reports are set up by the GPHC hasn't actually changed due to the portfolio. So you can just carry on as normal. So all the forms are available on the GPHC website, and you can just document your progress reports there. So it shouldn't really affect anything.
Thank you. I've got another question here about they're not able to see their trainee on their portfolio. And I know there's a question that's been asked today saying that DSs and training pharmacists in their trust now have access but aren't linked to each other. How do they get linked, and how long does this process take?
I can help with that one.
Yeah.
Help with that one? Yeah. As we mentioned before, you should be linked with your training in advance. However, your training does need to create a record for you to be able to be linked with them. So if they haven't done so, just get them to open up a record, and then you should be able to see them on your list.
Thank you. So we've got one that's come up that I'm going to actually answer, and it was why can my students sign off their own evidence? When I complete a piece of evidence, it says the student signed it off on their e-portfolio. We were only made aware of the one trainee that this happened to, but they should not be able to sign off their evidences. It should be the designated supervisor. If this is happening, can you please contact us as trainee pharmacists at HEE or the e-portfolio team at the RPS, so we can look at this, because it may be a coding issue. So we did rectify this as soon as we were made aware of it for this individual trainee, but if it's happening to others, we do need to know about it. So if you could email us, we'd really appreciate it. Okay. Got a question for you, Fataya, here. Okay, so if a DS is not able to carry out the appraisal due to sickness or absence, how can the EPD or another DS complete the appraisal?
Okay, so in that situation, the EPD can still conduct the GPHC progress report, and you just use the paper version that's available on the GPHC website. And the trainee can then upload that report onto the e-portfolio once it's been finished. And then once the DS is back from their leave, they can actually sign that off within the portfolio.
Here again, Fataya, I might throw this one at you, is what do the groups in the coloured boxes at the top mean, i.e. groups A to E?
So those are all the activities as part of the HEE assessment strategy. So there's 21 different activities that will enable a trainee to progress through the learning outcomes. So they're grouped into clusters to E. But more information is available on the website, which we'll go through. There's a training video available on that as well, which will outline exactly what those domains are and what's within them.
Got another question here. So how can trainees in unconventional training programs, for example, industry, best manage their portfolio or training record? Did you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so the e-portfolio enables trainee pharmacists and their DSs to document their progress against the GPHC interim learning outcomes, which can be done irrespective of sector and practice. So we are encouraging all trainee pharmacists to use the e-portfolio. Interested to hear from those in industry and understand if the e-portfolio has been built in a way that enables them to document their evidence from their experience. So if there are any issues arising, please email us at traineepharmacist@he.nhs.uk. Thank you. It's got a question here, which actually might be one for Helen and Fataya. How are you able to see progress on the e-portfolio for your trainees?
Okay, so Helen, do you want to start?
Yeah, I wonder whether it's just better to have a quick look actually. So this might help. I'll just share my screen again. Okay, so there are a couple of areas where you can view progress. As I mentioned, the trainee dashboard. So here you can see progress against the assessment strategies, and as they complete records, the counts here will increase. And obviously, if you see, even when I hover over, it gives you an indication of what's been started, which happens to be 0 for this account. And then next to all of these SLEs and all these other records, once they have created some records, you will also see a count against these as well. So you will see a count of all records that have been initiated and in progress. And then you see a separate count of anything that's been completed and signed off. So anything that is in progress is indicated in yellow. Anything that has been completed is in green. So that's the dashboard, but then there's another area here as well. So the outcome matrix, which we'll talk about more next week, but just to give you an idea. Here are all the learning outcomes and also the assessment strategies at the top, but this gives you a count of, again, what has been completed and started. And this is a huge grid that you can also have a look at as well. Again, all in one place for you.
There's also a progress bar as well, which will give you a very, brief overview of how the trainee is progressing. So as more and more learning outcomes are signed off during the course of the year, that progress bar will move along, hopefully to the end 100%.
Thank you both. Another question open for Helen or for Tara to jump in, is will portfolios, LNAs, etc. be transferred across and visible to DSs for cross-sector trainees? Will this happen? Is it a handover between sites or soon after?
Sorry, Pam, I didn't get the second half of the question.
So is when would DS, the cross-sector, be able to see the trainee's portfolio? Will they be able to get access at point of handover, or can it be done sooner, or is it done later?
So they would need to be linked to the ePortfolio. Once they're linked to the ePortfolio, then they will have access. So and that linking will happen if they've completed the HE survey, for example, but also whether they are a designated supervisor as per the GPHC data as well.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that the trainees DS is going to be in the other placement, is to kind of almost arrange that at least 8 weeks beforehand, because as we know, it takes 2 to 4 weeks to process the data and get access. So is there a quantity or number of submissions the student needs to make within the ePortfolio? So per learning outcome, is there a minimum requirement that they need to meet? Ted, do you want to take that one?
No, we haven't stipulated how many records of evidence a trainee will need to complete. That will be dependent on the learning outcome, the trainee's experience, but also and how confident the designated supervisor feels that something has been met. So we can't really specify a number at this stage. If a trainee has a joint DS, can both have access to the portfolio? Yes, they'll both have access to the portfolio and be able to talk to each other using the in-system messaging, which we'll go through next week as well. Both be able to see which evidences has been completed by the trainee, which ones have been signed off by which DS as well. Okay. Can you move objectives and evaluations, i.e. cut and paste, into a new PDP if they haven't completed it in the set time frame? Isn't that, well, if they don't complete it, just kind of carries on, it stays open?
Yeah, so from a technical point of view, you can't, but the PDP remains visible anyway, even if not all the actions are completed. So your trainee will be able to come back and view that as required, but you cannot create a PDP in isolation. So the PDP is auto-populated from the actions within the LNA.
Just had a question pop up here saying my portal is not linked with the trainee even if he has already uploaded documents. I guess for that one, could you contact us and we could look into that? Because if the trainee's uploaded evidence, it should kind of almost wake up the system and you should be automatically linked. Is that right then? Yeah. So if you could just drop us an email and we'll look into that. If you review an evidence and suggest changes, is there any way to send the evidence back to the trainee and for them to resubmit the edited piece? Do you want me to take this one? Yeah, so for example, let's take the reflective account. There is a box for DSs to complete as action points. If you complete that box and not click on save and complete, but just save, that will go back to the trainees to-do list almost, to say you've got a piece of work that's you need to do an action, and they'll be able to complete it, and then you'll be able to review it and then sign off. Hope that makes it quite clear. It's quite clear within the user guide, but there is an option to send it back. And also do utilise the chat function. You can easily send a message to your trainee to say, I've sent this reflective account back, please complete the action points as noted. I've got a question that doesn't really quite make sense, but does a DS have to be working in community? Not quite sure what that's comes to, but if the DS is linked to the trainee, they must meet the GPHC designated supervisor suitability policy. The same questions come up. I'll wait, it might come clear as we go down. Are the learning outcome numbers, are they in order? guess they are. We've just kind of numbered them 1 to 50 according to 55, so according to the GPHC. Okay. Okay, so we've spoken about suggested time. Is there a helpline number to contact if we have any questions or problems navigating through the ePortfolio?
I've just put that information into the chat, so
Oh, that's fine.
technical query, you can contact the RFRMS. For any other queries, you can go through
Thank you.
ePharmacist. Yeah, so it's all in the chat.
Okay. We've got some feedback comments which I'll take away, so thank you for that, everybody. Again, just question just popped up. Is the only the trainee who can set up LNA, won't allow the DS to create one?
Yes, that's correct. Because it's a tool primarily for the training, for them to self-assess their current practice. So yes, the trainee does need to set that up for the before the GS can view.
Thank you, Helen. Just another clarifying question. Is it a maximum of 30 PDPs for one LNA or 30 PDBs altogether in a year? Patea, do you want to take that one?
So as a minimum, we're saying 2 LNAs during the course of the year. So that's at week at the start and then repeated again at week 26. Those 2 LNAs will then develop 2 PDPs. However, if the trainee and you as the DS want to complete more, then that's fine as well. So some may choose to do it for every rotation or for every 13 weeks. That's entirely up to you, but we've set a minimum of 2. So there should be 2 LNAs, 2 PDPs.
And I've just got another one just to clarify regarding PDP completion. So marking as complete once the trainee has completed the actions that they have identified, rather than we have agreed with the trainee that the PDP is considered appropriate. So.
Yeah, that's correct. So I think when you are reviewing the PDP with your trainee, it's when you feel that they have achieved the majority of the actions. There may be some that they just haven't been able to achieve because of the deadlines that they've set themselves, but also they've not had the opportunity in practice. So it's when you feel that they've achieved an adequate amount of those actions.
Thank you. I've got 2 regarding the 13-week appraisal, and then I'm going to bring the questioning to a close. So if the 13-week appraisal is uploaded to the ePortfolio, does that mean we do not need to send the form to the GPHC at all? Did you want to take that one?
Yeah, so the GPHC states that if the trainee has performed unsatisfactorily, then that's the time when the form gets submitted to the GPHC. So if that's the case, then yes, you would need to send that across. If the trainee is satisfactory at the 13-week point, then no, you wouldn't need to submit that.
And last question before I bring the questions to a close, and this one's open to Helen and Patea. With the 13-week progress report, not all the boxes on the GPHC form are on the ePortfolio. So the trainees just need to upload the GPHC form.
Yes, that is correct. So there are just a few fields that you need to complete on the portfolio, and then you just upload the actual GPHC documentation. So you can it's and simple.
Yeah,
We'll be covering that. Sorry,
No.
next week as well, so we can demonstrate how you do that.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen in a moment. For a second. Go. Can you see that? Does that come up?
Not yet. It's coming.
Okay. So this is a link for the useful resources, and what I'll do is I'll copy and paste this across in a moment to the chat function as well with the live links. Do have a look on the HE Pharmacy webpage. We've got a dedicated site to the ePortfolio. There are a range of resources, including all the templates to all the SLEs, and short videos as well to help support about each evidence and when and how to use it. The updated guides are already there, and if you've not already signed up to receiving the initial education training pharmacist newsletter, I'll drop the link into the chat function as well for everybody to kind of sign up. And I'll also put the link for the DS survey as well. A couple of you have asked for this within the chat. So as in summary, we kind of picked up 3 points using from yesterday's webinar with the trainees. So the LNA is completed a minimum of 2 times in the year, but a trainee may wish to complete it as many times as they wish. And this is a discussion that you as a DS and the trainee need to have. If the trainee has already completed an LNA and PDP prior to the ePortfolio being launched, this can still be used. They can keep a hold of it, and then the next LNA to be use the ePortfolio to generate this. But also, if they do want to upload their previous LNA to the ePortfolio, they can backdate it as well if they wish to do so. And just to remember, a PDP is only generated once an LNA has been completed. That is generated, so it follows into a PDP.